Help, trouble spots,
internal.
Turn these. You want me to lower the lights over there?
I really need these. Which ones are these, do you know? Because it flickers a little bit. Can you do the next one? See what that does? More? The other one? All right, that might be good. Okay, the section we're going to talk about is trouble spots. Do we need to go over any of the stuff that we've gone through before? Anybody have any questions about some of the other stuff? What do we go to? Hyperkeys. Hyperkeys is real important, guys. Y'all have any questions about the hyperkeys? If you do, just say it. I mean, we'll go through it real quick. It's no big deal. You want to go through it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll go through hyperkeys real quick, and then some of the movements and stuff. Just because hyperkeys is really important. So when you're editing in a job, to get into hyperkeys is Alt-Z. Alt-Z gets you into hyperkeys. And you're going to know that it's hyperkeys because you're going to have the larger cursor. It's not going to be the real skinny cursor. It's going to be the fatter cursor or whatever. So that's when you're going to know that you're in hyperkeys. And it's also going to tell you down here in the status bar that you're in hyperkeys. Plus, your hyperkeys is going to look like that, pushed in. Okay? Make sense? All right. We'll do an overview of the hyperkeys.
Here's an overview of how Automagic works. Automagic makes using Eclipse as easy as 1, 2, 3. When you turn on Eclipse, press 1 to reopen the last job you were editing. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3 works. Automagic makes using Eclipse as easy as 1, 2, 3. When you turn on Eclipse, press 1 to reopen the last job you were editing.
I think y'all kind of remember that, right? Y'all kind of remember that one. The last job that you were in, it's going to remember, and it's always going to put it as number 1. Okay? Really important. So you don't have to do the Alt-D, search for the job, whatever. You just go in there, push number 1. It takes you back to the place where you were last time you were editing or doing whatever you were doing. Okay?
Each time you move your cursor, you'll probably find the choice you need is at the top of the list from 1 to 10. Automagic is also a great teacher. Wherever there's a menu item, you'll see the icon displayed. You'll also see the hyperkeys and speed keys that are editing shortcuts. But if you don't need to see these, you can hide them. Here a StenoNotes file is open. Pressing 7 gives you a translation preview. That's not a new feature, but Automagic makes it really easy to use. In a new dictionary, just press 1 to build from a word list, or 2 to add entries from your computer keyboard. Automagic adds great shortcuts to find entries. Pressing 1 here would filter the display to show just capitalized entries. And now press 1 again to unfilter the display. Globaling is a good example. With Global Magic, Eclipse users can simply mark notes and then pick a choice off a list. You can still use the very efficient globaling dialog, but it's even easier to pick choices from the Automagic list.
Okay, one thing that I want to explain about this is, they mentioned about, what you can do. So the functions are right here. It tells you what it's going to do right here, so you can choose the number. But if you don't like choosing the number, this is the function that it does. This is the function that it is to get to it. So if you want to go into insert any paragraph type, you do F8, okay? Or, block mark is M in hyperkeys. So all of this stuff, you know, it just gives you shortcuts. So it's not doing something extra or whatever. It's just explaining, this is what it's going to do. This is the function to do it. Okay? Let me emphasize something that's extremely important with this software. When you're in HyperKeys, and it'll explain it a little bit later, but when you're in HyperKeys, all you do is they want your fingers on the keyboard. So you can do all functions on that keyboard without really moving your hands a whole lot. It's just moving your fingers. The thing about Eclipse, especially in HyperKeys, or just in the software in itself, is like when you're in HyperKeys and you push a letter, it's going to tell it to do a function. It's not going to type a letter when it's in HyperKeys. So it goes completely from that. So when you want to type or insert, you have to push in. Then you type. That's when it has a smaller cursor. Does that make sense? And I'll show you guys in a little bit or whatever. But the thing that I want to emphasize to you is don't get so comfortable in inserting stuff. Okay? Because the software is only as smart as you make it. And if you're inserting stuff, it doesn't know insert. But when you're using functions with the software, it remembers what you did and it starts doing it for you. That makes sense? So don't get used to just typing it in, because then it's just like typing. You're just typing then. It doesn't remember typing. When you insert, all it's thinking is he or she dropped. That's all it knows. And that you're just putting stuff in. And it's okay, because every now and then you have to do it, because either you just grossly misstroke the word or you drop something. It needs to go in there. And that's okay.
That's lowercase n, right?
Yeah.
Uppercase would do something else.
Uppercase is something totally different. Lowercase is insert. Okay? So you want to get used to using the software. That's the whole point of it. And then the software has an artificial intelligence, and it remembers what you do. It remembers functions that you do. It remembers things that you write the same. You know, through the Automagic keys, when it gives you these different choices, and say you write things kind of the same. Maybe you write arrest, you know, that way, but you write after kind of close, because the F and the R are right there on the same finger. Well, it thinks, well, did you mean arrest? Did you mean after? Because it's kind of close. Maybe you misstroked it. It's always giving you options of something totally different, because it thinks there's a possibility that maybe you misstroked it, but you didn't misstroke it, and that's the word for the stroke that you hit. Okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh. Slick? All right.
Make this 4-stroke steno global. All I have to do is press 3. And now press a number if I want this global to go into a dictionary or affect the rest of the document. Otherwise, just keep moving the cursor. So global replacements typically take only 1 or 2 steps and no typing. Automagic understands paragraphing. Again, just press a number to do with 1 step what might take multiple steps on another program. Automagic also watches out for word reversals, or incorrectly applied suffixes, or missing punctuation, and compound word problems. Naturally, it alerts you to spelling problems as you're making them. It also helps with number formatting and hyphenation without requiring that your cursor be at the very start of a number. Automagic is not just one feature, it's a synthesis of years of innovation, including global magic and translation magic. Total Eclipse. Brilliantly simple, simply brilliant.
Get that? Brilliant. Much like the teacher. Excuse me?
Yes, I hear Total Eclipse. I hear that. I keep singing that song in my head. Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Don't ever do that either. Okay, now they're going to talk about hyperkeys. And these are the most frequently used editing commands. So what they've done is they've found the commands that you're going to use the most, and they put them to certain letters. So when you're in HyperKeys, they want you to use just your fingers. And I mean, it's amazing what you can do. It's crazy. So we'll kind of go through it a little bit. And most of these functions don't require like using Control and Alt. It's going to require Shift only because that's when you use the capital of the letter. But the most frequently used is going to be the lowercase, because usually you're in lowercase.
Okay.
And then the other one is going to be the one that you don't use as much. So they try to get them to where the letters coincide with what you're trying to do. Like, you know,
Yes.
T for going to the next one, translate, D for delete, you know, something like that, C for the next conflict, you know, so it comes pretty close, okay? Okay. And also, you might not think that HyperKeys isn't useful with AutoMagic, but that's not true. Because the more you use the functions, the more it remembers what you're doing. So that's when AutoMagic kind of comes into effect also. So it's going to remember what you're doing. And a lot of times you can detect stuff, it'll detect stuff quicker than what you can. So it's always giving you choices of what it thinks you're trying to do. Okay?
The fastest way to edit with Eclipse is to use AutoMagic and HyperKeys. You'll be able to Magic and HyperKeys. You'll be able to bypass menus, and you won't have to remember whether something begins with Control or Alt. AutoMagic and HyperKeys work beautifully together. Many times you'll be able to pick the choice you need from a numbered list. But sometimes there may not be enough room on the list for the choice that you would need. Wherever possible, AutoMagic would like to also show you the HyperKeys. These allow you to keep your fingers on the typing keyboard. For instance, the cursor keys are right at your fingertips. No need to move your hand, just to move your cursor through the document.
You understand what it's saying there? We've kind of gone over this already, but I mean, it's real important because these are the movement keys right here. So it's your home finger keys on the keyboard. So I is up, K is down, J is left, I is right. I mean L. L is right. Oh, you want to teach a class now? Sheesh. L, sorry about that guys, L. So I is up, K is down, and then J and L is left and right.
So we don't have to use those little arrow keys, is what you're
No,
saying? We just
no,
use those
they don't want you to move your key. They don't want you to move your fingers
from the basic.
from the base home keyboard.
Okay.
Okay?
Commands are designed to be easy to remember, like D for delete, F for find, G for global. No need to press another key first. If you press Shift with a key, as you would for a capital letter, it can have a totally different, often related meaning. So how do you turn HyperKeys on or off? Of course, you can use the mouse to click on the icon of the toolbar, but you can also select from the Edit menu or avoid the menus entirely by using the speed key Alt-Z.
So what it's explaining here is there's a lot of different ways of doing things with this software. So if you forget the command, you can always go back to the basic and kind of remember or learn what it is. Does that make sense to you guys? You know, the HyperKeys, you know, icon is right there. So you can press HyperKeys, or you can go into, you know, the functions up here, find HyperKeys, find out what command it is, which is Alt-Z, and then, oh yeah, it's Alt-Z. So then you kind of remember. So if you forget, you just kind of go back and always come back to these little toolbars right up here. Okay?
hyperkeys are on, the toolbar icon will look pushed in, and you'll notice an HYP on the status bar at the bottom of the screen.
That's what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, down here on the status bar, you know, it's going to say hyperkeys. So that's how you're going to know. One, it's going to give you that. You're going to have the fatter cursor. Hyperkeys is going to be pushed in. Okay?
The cursor will look bigger, indicating you're not yet ready to type. And if you have AutoMagic displaying keyboard shortcuts, then you will see the hyper key indicated. But when hyperkeys are off, you would see the regular speed key, and the cursor would be a narrow typing cursor. When hyperkeys are on, Eclipse expects that when you press a letter, it's to give a command rather than to type. If you forget this, and you press a letter to type and inadvertently lose your place, and perhaps land in a dialogue, simply press the escape key, and then use the movement oops command to go back to the last edit point. That's either Shift-Alt-L or hyperkey capital Z. So how do you temporarily turn off hyperkeys in order to...
Did y'all understand that right there? Very important.
Capital Z, go back. That's what they it's an uppercase.
And it's just Z. When you're in hyperkeys, it's just Z. So a lot of times when you do something and say it takes you to the end of the page for some reason, and you're like, oh my God, I don't even remember where I was. The oops key will take you back. Okay?
It's just the capital Z.
It's just Z in hyperkeys, or Control Z. Control Z is when you're not. And let me see if I can find a spot. Yeah, we're in hyperkeys now. Let me see. I'm gonna do delete. You know what? I didn't want to do that. Z puts it back. Just Z puts it back. See it again? We'll go to a different spot up here,
Oh, cool.
and I'll do D for delete. I messed up. Z again puts it back. Okay? So let's just say I'm right here, and I see something and it needs to be, it was catastrophic. So I need to type in C. C takes me down to the next conflict. Oh my God. Well, maybe that was 6 pages down. Uh-oh. I just said it. Hold on. Let's see if it does. Okay, I'm here. Hyperkeys. C takes me back there. That was wrong. Shift Z. Shift Z takes you back. On a delete, you can do just Z. It'll do it. But I guess when you're doing like going to a conflict, untranslate, you know, something like that. Let's try it again. Let me do a T for translate. Shift Z. Shift Z takes you back. But if you're right here and you push D for delete, Z puts it back. You know what? Let's go up here and do D and do Shift Z. No, see, Shift Z doesn't do it. So I think it's just on the commands where you're moving, you know, like from page to page, possibly, where you're going from a conflict to an untranslate or something like that. That's when it does it. Let me see. Let me go right here and say I wanted to add. Okay. Alt A will add an apostrophe onto something. So apostrophe S, S apostrophe, Alt A. Did y'all know that already? Okay. Alt A does that. Alt A added an apostrophe S, or if there's an S there already, it'll add an apostrophe. So if you accidentally do it and you push, you meant to go to a certain page, and you push Alt A instead of Alt G, Alt G is go to page, and it's, you know, you wanted to go to page and you push Alt A, that put an apostrophe S, type Z, it takes it off. So Z is a command in HyperKeys as an oops, but if you do it through a control, where you went to a conflict, an untranslate, something like that, then it shifts Z. So if for some reason the command that you're doing doesn't fix it with Z, then it's going to be shift Z. Or if you're not in HyperKeys, then it's going to be, I think they said control L.
Letter, it's to give a command rather.
Yeah, shift Alt L or HyperKey shift Z. Yeah. So that'll take you to the last editing point. So let's go back into this document and see. So say I'm here, let's see if it'll do it. I've never done it before, so let's just kind of see. Let me say I want to go to page 99. Well, I didn't mean to push that. With the shift control. Shift Alt. I mean, I'm doing now. See how I did that? So say you want to, say you're editing right now, and you're in this, you're in a certain place or whatever, you're editing, and it's kind of overkill because it usually tells you down here on the status bar. But say you need to check something. Say you need to check something on page 99. Well, we're right here on Mr. Barnett. Alt G, 99. Go to 99. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Shift Alt L takes you back to wherever you were. That's funny. Awesome. Shift Alt L takes you back to the last place. Okay?
If it's jumping to the next conflict with C, is it just C?
Yeah, in HyperKeys it is.
In HyperKeys it's just C?
It's just C. Takes you to the next conflict. T takes you to the next untranslate. And we're going to kind of go through that in the next little section that we do. All right?
Is there any way that we can, like, I guess I'm more of a hands-on person.
Mhm.
Is there any way that we can, I don't know, as you're going for us to do the same thing as you're doing? You know how you have that exhibit, or I don't know which we're looking at? You know how you were playing with it? Is there any way that we can play with something like that? I don't know.
Besides our own document, maybe if we had a document that was, all of us had the same document with the same mistakes. And then we went through that document. It doesn't have to be a long one. But if we did the document and went through it with each step, oh, here you need to do this, so this is how you
And then
do
we can
that.
play with that at the same time that you're
At the same time you're doing it.
That's what I'm saying. Get into a document that you have. And it doesn't have to be the same one. It doesn't have to be the same thing that we're looking at.
Just try it.
The question was
Right.
asked, you know, if we can get in something to where you guys can start doing the commands. That's kind of what I wanted you guys to do. That was the whole point of kind of having the computer. I want you to see it, and I want you to open up to something, to a job that you've already done. Like say you had a practicing session, something that you can mess up, that it doesn't matter if you mess it up.
How would I?
Go to a file, you
Just go
open
to
up a second
any file,
Eclipse.
that you were just practicing on.
You
Do
open a
have one?
second Eclipse. You know how when you click on it again, it's gonna ask you, do you really wanna run to Eclipse? And you say yes. And then that way you'll have your own
So you-
file over here and what we're doing over here as a class.
What she was asking was, how do we get to that? Okay, and how do I get to that? Right here, You know, say we're right here. We're right here in the lesson plan. What you want to do is come up here. You don't want to come to this one because this is going to minimize the lesson plan that we're doing.
That we're working on.
Yeah. So you don't want to do that. So you want it. What you want to do.
Open your files and find one. And then we can mess around that.
Okay. Once you go in, you're already here. You're already here, guys. Okay? You don't want to come to this one and minimize it. You want to come to this one, to the top one, which is the main, your main. You want to minimize the main one. So it's going to bring you back to your screen. Go back to Eclipse. Press on it, and it's going to ask you if you want to allow this program to run it several times, more than once. Hold on. This is where it is. Are you sure you wish to run multiple copies of Eclipse? Yes, you do. So you push yes. I'm going to push no because I already have several copies running. And then go in and find an old file that you can kind of mess around with.
Do we have to have our machines attached to it though? Because it's telling us that it's not able to find my machine. And I'm thinking it's already downloaded and there shouldn't be any reason why I would have to do that to find one of my files. See what I'm saying? Okay, look, watch.
Get out of it.
Wink. Okay, so I want to open a file just so I can work on it, right? That's what you said. I want to open a
Alt-T,
Alt-T,
E.
Alt-E.
Alt-E for edit.